Good morning and welcome everyone. Please have a seat, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you. My name is Audrey Kitagawa and I will be your Master of Ceremonies today. I should more properly say Mistress of Ceremonies. On behalf of the co-sponsors of this event, I would like to express our deepest appreciation for your attendance today at the last of our 3 events commemorating the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. May I please ask that you silence your phones so we have no distractions during this program, which is being broadcast live internationally on Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook. We will not read any of the bios of the speakers out loud in the program because all of the speakers' bios have been placed in our online chat box. We do have the international audience viewing in. And for those who are present at Jodo Mission today, in person, the bios are in your printed program. To begin our program today, we have a musical performance by Ms. Miwa Maipala Nakamura from Chiba, Japan. And she has flown in from Japan to participate in these events. And she will share with us her rendition of the song, Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. It tells the true story of Sadako Sasaki, a victim of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. She set out to create 1,000 origami cranes when dying of leukemia from radiation poisoning caused by the bomb. Sadako's friend told her to fold origami paper cranes in hopes of making 1,000 of them. She was inspired to do so by the Japanese legend that one who created 1,000 origami cranes would be granted a wish. Her wish was simply to live through her disease so she could fulfill her dream of being on the running team. As time went on and she was not getting better, she began to wish for peace and the abolishment of nuclear weapons. She managed to fold only 644 cranes before she became too weak to fold anymore and died in her sleep on the morning of October 25th, 1955. She was only 12 years old. Her classmates, friends, and family helped finish her dream by folding the rest of the cranes, which were buried with Sadako. The origami crane, a symbol of longevity, peace, and healing, and Sadako's story of hope and perseverance have become a poignant reminder of the human cost of war and a plea for peace. Please welcome Ms. Miwa Maipala Nakamura. Thank you, Miwa.
Aloha! Sadako was only 2 years old. On that day the atom bomb exploded in a sea of fire all around. Mother found her baby on the ground. Black rain fell mixed with tears as they fled, filled with fear. この祈りを聞いて翼を広げ平和の千羽鶴私たちの夢 を乗せて Sadako grew up a happy child. For her friends she always had a smile. But a silent sickness grew within her from the day the bomb exploded near her. Now she falls to the floor 10 years after the war. この祈りを聞いて翼を広げ平和の千羽鶴私たちの夢を乗せて Gracefully she tries to hide the pain as her fingers fold a paper crane folding cranes until her final hour as she prays for life with all her power. Sadako, rest in peace. Help us to bring world peace. この祈りを聞いて翼を広げ私たちの夢を乗せて翼を広げ平和の千羽鶴私たちの夢を乗せてありがとうございました。Thank you so much. マハロの色は
Thank you so much, Miwa-san. The 80th commemorative anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is an important event for the people of Hawaii as well. Not only are the people of Japanese ancestry the third largest ethnic group in Hawaii, but we have deep connections with Japan through ancestry, family ties, tourism, business, religion, and government ties. Geographically, Hawaii is the closest part of the United States to North Korea, and along with Alaska, the closest to China, making it more vulnerable to the threat of nuclear attack, as we all in Hawaii know about the false missile alert coming in from North Korea that we were alerted to with instructions that this is not a drill. However, the frailty of our system of warning, as well as the human frailty to commit errors, is something that the people of Hawaii have experienced. So this issue is of particular importance to us. It is also one of the most important military locations in the world, the command center for the US in the Asia-Pacific region, the dozens of strategic military installations, and some of the largest and most influential military commands in the Pacific. Hawaii is culturally and spiritually significant as well. It has long been known as a crossroads of the Pacific and as the hub of transportation, communication, and cultural exchange of this hemisphere. It is also a center of business, trade, international diplomacy, and home to many religious and faith traditions. And of course, our very first program addressed this issue of international diplomacy, and Hawaii will have a very pivotal role to play in international diplomatic relationships. Hawaii's ancient indigenous culture is based on a deep connection to the land, sea, and nature, and its spirit of aloha infuses the culture and human relationships. Aloha means love and embraces the deep understanding that we're all interconnected to the divine. At a deeper level, aloha is being a part of all, and all being a part of me. Hawaiian spiritual values are shared with many faith traditions and can provide guidance and inspiration for humanity as we face the daunting challenge and absolute necessity of abolishing nuclear weapons. The Japanese have a long and complex history in Hawaii. Many of the original immigrants who came to Hawaii in the 19th and 20th centuries originated from the southern part of Japan, including Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and many Hawaii residents have family ties there. The first large group of Japanese immigrants arrived in Hawaii in 1868, approximately 150 people slated to work on sugar plantations. In 1869, Japan barred immigration to Hawaii. A proud people, they feared that laborers performing menial tasks and facing harsh treatment in Hawaii could degrade the image and standing of the Japanese people. In 1881, King David Kalakaua traveled to Japan to meet the Meiji Emperor to strengthen relations between the two nations, and the ban on immigration was lifted a few years later. By the turn of the century, over 80,000 Japanese had come to Hawaii to work on the plantations. By the 1920s, the Japanese were the second largest ethnic group in Hawaii. They exemplified core Japanese values that were shaped by centuries of tradition and adapted to the realities of plantation life, including ganbaru, perseverance and endurance, giri, duty and obligation, wa, harmony and solidarity, shugyo, discipline, and oyakoko, filial piety. The Jodo, or Pure Land branch of Buddhism, was founded in 12th century Japan. The first Buddhist mission in Hawaii was established in Hamakua on the Big Island in 1896 by a Jodo minister from Kyushu, Japan. This was a major event for the Japanese community in Hawaii, providing spiritual support for the many people working on sugar plantations. The beauty of Jodo Temple, where we are assembled today, was built in 1932 and is the headquarters of Jodoshu Buddhism in Hawaii. The recitation of the Nembutsu and chanting of the Holy Sutras in this beautiful building for over 90 years have imbued it with the sacred spirit and teachings of Lord Buddha. And we are grateful to Bishop Ishikawa and the Jodo community for inviting us to gather here today to reflect on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Jodo Temple has played a significant role in the lives of many Hawaii Buddhists over the years and was a source of spiritual and cultural support during and after World War II. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor and the declaration of war by President Roosevelt, there were profound and immediate consequences for Japanese people living here in Hawaii. It was a time of fear, suspicion, disruption, and terrible injustices. Shigeo Iwashita was a former farmer in Kapoho on the Big Island, where he lived with his wife Harumi and their 11 children. Late at night on December 7, 1941, the day Pearl Harbor was bombed, Shigeo was picked up by the US government officials, taken to a detention camp near Kilauea, and was shipped off to the mainland. Harumi and her 11 children were sent to an internment camp in Jerome, Arkansas, where they were later reunited with their father. The family was moved to Tule Lake Internment Center in California, where they were told that they would not be returning to Hawaii and would be deported to Japan. But after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the end of the war, the Iwashitas returned to Hawaii. The large family of 13 moved from one temporary lodging to another until Jodo Mission offered them a 2-bedroom cottage here on the mission grounds. Mr. and Mrs. Iwashita both worked multiple jobs, and the older children had after-school jobs. Through their hard work and perseverance, the family eventually moved into their own home. The children completed their education, and they went on to live productive lives in the community. The family credits the kindness and generosity of the Jodo Mission for helping them get back on their feet and providing a safe, loving community and spiritual support in their time of need. 3 of those 11 children are here with us today: Fukashi Iwashita, Hiroko Fujimoto, and Yasuko Iwashita. On behalf of the Iwashita family and many other Hawaii families, we extend our deepest appreciation and gratitude to the Jodo Mission of Hawaii for exemplifying the compassion and kindness of Lord Buddha and their teachings in action. My own mother was a devoted member of Jodo Mission, as well as my father's family from Kaka'ako, where we all grew up. Back in those days, Kaka'ako was all swamp and coral dirt. My eldest brother Hiram has kept up with the family tradition and is here with us today. We are honored to have Bishop Kosen Ishikawa join us to share his thoughts on the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and his reflections on the Buddhist perspective on finding peace. Bishop Ishikawa serves as Bishop of Jodo-shu in the state of Hawaii, and he also is in charge of 2 temples on Kauai, Kapa'a Jodo Mission and Koloa Jodo Mission. Bishop Ishikawa, thank you for opening the doors to all of us in Jodo Mission, and we look forward to your sharing. Bishop Ishikawa.
Ohayou gozaimasu. Good morning and aloha kako. Today, here at Jodo Mission, we are very honored to welcome Divine Mother, Audrey Kitagawa, and distinguished speakers, Ms. Rorry Daniels and Mr. Jonathan Granoff, honorable guests, members, and friends, as we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, to reflect on the meaning of peace. I am deeply grateful for this opportunity, and thank you very much for your presence. When I first came to this temple 28 years ago, Sensei Audrey's mother, Yoshiko-san, was such a bright, caring, cheerful, hardworking, and positive person. She was an active member who inspired and encouraged me greatly. 3 years later, I was assigned to Hawaiʻi, where I served for the next 21 years. But every year, Mrs. Yoshiko sent us a holiday card with a gift to my family. By the time I returned to this temple as bishop, she had passed away. But I came to know her son, Mr. Hiram, and later Divine Mother Audrey. And with support, we are very grateful. Thank you very much. It is a joy to this temple, which Mrs. Yoshiko loves so much, now opening its door to the wider community and welcoming so many people here and through the online. In preparation for this day, staffs and volunteers from Light of Awareness visited here many times, especially in the last few days, where dozens of people worked so hard cleaning every corner of this temple. We already have daily and seasonal, cleanings, but this time the scale far exceeded my expectation, and our temple began to shine like never before. Last year, we celebrated our 130th anniversary and the 850th anniversary of Jodo Buddhism, which was founded in 1175. But this gathering is much larger in scope. To all who made this possible, arigatou gozaimasu, and also mahalo to all the supporters and sponsors. The past 2 weeks have been exceptionally busy for me as preparing for our own Bon Dance, which will take place August 16, next Saturday. And also, I was busy getting ready for Japan right after this ceremony and taking care of guests from Japan. In the middle of it all, I decided to fold 1,000 paper cranes as a prayer of peace. But after making 100, I realized it would take time. Fortunately, and thanks to our members' assistance, I am now much closer to 1,000, my goal. The tradition of folding 1,000 cranes, rooted in the Japanese proverb, cranes live 1,000 years, and turtles for 10,000 years, has long been a symbol of good fortune and longevity. It became very famous through the story of Sadako Sasaki, a Hiroshima bombing survivor, who at age 12 developed leukemia. Inspired by a letter and a paper crane, she began folding cranes, believing her wish for recovery would come true if she reached 1,000. Sadly, she passed away before her wish could be fulfilled, but her cranes became a global symbol of peace. I first folded cranes as a child when a classmate mother became ill. Our whole class worked together, moved by the pure desire to help. Later, in middle school, I visited Hiroshima Peace Memorial for my first time as a school trip to bring our own 1,000 cranes to Hiroshima and saw thousands from across Japan. In that moment, I felt the living power of prayers. While folding cranes kept me busy, I realized being busy can be a great blessing. I believe that being busy is a form of meditation when we are fully absorbed in something as our focus turns to mindfulness. That's where true happiness can be found. For instance, there are many happinesses, we can list up so many happiness. such as reading books and watching movies. A good book always makes us being very busy to chase the characters. If a book is boring, our minds tend to wander, and we cannot concentrate on reading, and we are thinking other things. Watching movies, same thing. If movie is boring, we can't be busy, and we are thinking other things. On the other hand, if the movie is good, we forget ourselves, and we are very busy chasing all the actions. That make us forget everything. And playing sports is the same thing. Yesterday, Shohei Ohtani had another homer. And when we watch Shohei Ohtani, he hits homer, I forget everything because I was so busy chasing the ball with dynamic swing. During that moment, I feel great happiness. But I actually forget everything. Sometimes there are people, who I like doing nothing. But if that is the case, that person must be very busy doing nothing. So that they forget, themselves. Buddhism is in many ways a teaching of happiness. Meditation and the Nembutsu are two ways to cultivate that happiness. When we focus deeply on our breath or sincerely recite Namu Amida Butsu, we naturally forget our worries and we can live in the present moment. In that moment, we are touched by immeasurable joy. Again, to be happy can be to be busy. Not in a stressful way, but in the sense of forgetting ourselves and our own existence. This is similar to the Buddhist teaching of non-attachment. When we cling to something with attachment, we invite suffering. Non-attachment, by contrast, frees us from suffering. So, how do we understand this anniversary? In a sense, anniversary is attachment. What is the meaning of the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? It could be said that we have held on to this tragedy for 80 years. But why? The reason is simple. On August 6th in Hiroshima and August 9th in Nagasaki in 1945, atomic bombs were dropped that instantly destroyed over 140,000 people, along with homes, workplaces, schools, and entire communities. The bombings destroyed everything. Not only did they take lives, but they left countless survivors suffering, many to this very day. We must not forget this tragedy. In this case, attachment is not harmful. In fact, it is necessary. Attachment to the memorial prayer and aspiration for peace every year is what ensures that we remember. Without this kind of attachment, our commitment to peace could fade. This is why it is both important and deeply meaningful to observe this anniversary and renew our vow to live in peace. Here in Hawaii, we often feel fortunate to live far from the wars. We have aloha and the spirit of kokua to help each other. But if we are mindful, we realize we are never truly far from the conflict. Arguments and disagreement happen everywhere, even here at this Jodo mission. Disputes can arise in our communities, our workplaces, and even in the smallest unit of all between husband and wife. Without peace in these smallest units, how can we expect peace in the world? If every couple in the world live in harmony, we would already be much closer to world peace. But of course, this is easier said than done. And I say this is as a husband myself. Fortunately, this year marks the 25th anniversary of my marriage. I'm very grateful to my wife, for being my wife for 25 years. But I must confess, my wife and I have experienced World War I, World War II, World War III, and World War IV, all within our homes. We have had our share of arguments, different opinions, and conflicting visions for the future. And yet, through those battles, I discovered the secret to peace with my wife. It's a very simple path, so I want to share. I believe also holds a key to peace in the wider world. Needless to say, we dispute because we are all different. Some years ago, I realized disagreement happens in many cases because my justice and her justice are different. My justice and your justice may not be the same. And my right and your right may not be the same. That's why conflict and arguments happen. For instance, if you don't mind, please raise your right hand. Yeah, thank you so much. The right for me is freeway side, mountain side, and Mauka side. On the other hand, your right is ocean side, Makai side, Alamona side. Me, right is right. I am correct. And you, right is right. And you are both correct. I am correct. But the truth is that right are different. How we can match the right? After living together with my wife for 25 years, I finally got it. The easiest way to have a peace between husband and wife is I turn to the Buddha, and my right and your right can be same. Having the same direction, we can share the same right. So in case of arguments, troubles, disagreement happens, let's have another goal and to look at the same direction. Then we should have no war. That is a very important realization, and I want to thank my wife. ありがとうございます. And another, the thought for peace is that while I was on Hawai, I encountered a beautiful sign at the county park on Hawai. And it says that one island, many peoples, all Hawaiians. One island, many peoples, all Hawaiian. And I was so impressed the creation of the new word, Hawaiian. I'm from Japan, you may from here, you are from Philippines, China. Everybody came from different, countries. But by having a word, Hawaiian, by creating a new word, that apply everybody. Those who live on Kauai, all Hawaiian. What a great creation. That kind of creation we may need in the future. If the religion doesn't work, the society doesn't work, let's create a new concept, new word that apply for everyone without exception. By having a new concept, an idea, we can have same right and same directions. Right now, wars are happening because they're insisting, to own the land. But from the viewpoint of the universe, that's a small thing. Let's look at the sky. There are so many planets, resources, land, countless, limitless, land resources are there. Instead of insisting, this is my island, this is my land, let's look at the sky. I think that kind of aspiration, goal, is what we need. And I want to thank this opportunity to deliver my message for peace. And because of so many victims 80 years ago, we can have this anniversary. And especially Divine Mother, thank you very much for having such a very important event here at Jodo Mission. And I'm so grateful. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And thank you for watching, this online event. And I want to thank Amida Buddha, who take care of all the disease. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bishop Ishikawa. We really appreciated your remarks, especially for all the married people in the audience today and internationally. And you made the reality of living together in harmony, with love and appreciation, and giving us a different perspective on how we can be together. So thank you so very much. And I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Rorry Daniels. And many of you have heard Rorry for over the past 2 days. And her years of experience on Asia-Pacific security, policy, and diplomacy have been an important contribution to our events. And we are very grateful for her participation. We welcome Rorry to share her reflections on her visit to Hawaii and the events of the past few days, and her reflections on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Rorry?
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Audrey, for this wonderful welcome and kind introduction, and to all of you for being here today. We've just gone through a series of events commemorating the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and I'm truly humbled to be here today, especially here at the Jodo Mission. Thank you, Bishop Ishikawa, for hosting us. And I'd like to spend a little time today not just reflecting on the tragic events of 80 years ago, but thinking more about what our communities can do today to ensure that this never happens again. As I reflect on the events of the last 3 days, one element that struck me is that there's so much energy in this community to reach out and support the peace-loving people of the world, and yet a sense of hopelessness in our own society, that we remain deeply divided, and that it's difficult to see the way forward to peace for all humanity. So what do we do? I think we have to recognize that we are living in a very extraordinary inflection point for human history. And it's a great privilege to be here at the dawn of the new information age, the fourth industrial revolution, where we are more intimately connected to people all over the world than we have ever been, and where the whole knowledge of human history can fit in your pocket, in your smartphone, and you have access to it. The democratization of access to information has always led humans towards progress over time, but often in the moment when we are faced with an extraordinary volume of information at new times, we see a backlash towards insularism, towards isolationism, towards tribalism. So we have to work through this backlash period, and we have to develop new ways to process and store and interpret information so that we can continue to lead with our values, compassion, empathy, curiosity. That's an incredible task before us. It's an opportunity, and it's a responsibility and the duty of all of us to work toward those goals. Tribalism is not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't have to lead toward fighting and war. If we can recognize, one, that we have empowerment within our tribes to understand what makes us the same, to see the common humanity in all of the people who we interact with. And also, if we can share that light with members of other tribes, we can all come together. So I encourage all of you, the thing that you can do that will be most impactful in our society, in our political leadership, in our way of life, is to reach out to the members of your own tribes. Connect with them. Fight loneliness and isolation at a human level. When we do that, when we feel connected to the rest of the society around us, even if we don't agree, even if we don't agree on basic facts, if we can see the humanity in other people and they recognize that we see it, they will start to apply themselves to causes for greater good. So please take a moment as you think through, as you're leaving today, who are the members of your tribes? Probably not just one. You have your spiritual community. You have the community of education that you grew up in. You have your family and your extended family. You have the communities that you shop with. You have the communities that that are part of the networks of your children's friends, etc. Think through who's in your community, who doesn't feel like they belong, and how can I make them feel that sense of belonging? If every single person in this country devoted and invested in those communities, we would come to very different political decisions, and those political decisions will impact the trajectory of global relations, international order, and ultimately lead us towards that progress that is possible given the amount of information that we have and our values applied toward it. I want to talk a little bit about the international order in this moment, and how I see some of the trends that you might observe in your day-to-day life happening inside international relations, and what the communities of people that care very deeply that we live in a peaceful and prosperous world are doing about that, in order to give you some hope, again, that there are people out there, there are communities and networks that are working toward these larger issues of nuclear nonproliferation and are achieving progress in doing so by applying the same tools that I just discussed about creating belonging and empathy and partnership at a global and macro scale. So I work in a field called Track 2 diplomacy, and that is the process of bringing people together in an unofficial capacity, private capacity, experts, scholars, officials, former officials, to talk very frankly about the issues of concern and issues between countries where we cannot seem to agree or get along. That community of people meets together to create and develop trust among that community and in each other in order to have the difficult conversations that need to be had. There's no peace achieved without very difficult conversations first. And I want to share a couple personal reflections from my time working in this field of Track 2 diplomacy. So we meet in conferences, we have private meetings, we visit each other's countries. And in that unofficial setting where we're not bound by the policies of a government, of a state, we're able to make some connections to reduce the amount of misperception and misunderstanding about what is driving our policy choices. Often our policy choices are not a priori given to us, but they're created through drivers or trends that are happening inside our societies and cultures that, again, position us as the righteous and the good, and anyone trying to stop us as the enemy or the adversary. But when you sit together and speak in a very frank manner about what is driving policy choices, you often find that the ability to reframe those policy choices creates avenues for progress and creative policy solutions. And I want to share one story, a personal reflection, a story that I saw when I've been working on a very contentious issue, which is relevant to our nuclear posture in Asia, though not directly connected, and that's the issue of weapons. So Japan and Korea share a very difficult history. The militarism and nationalism that Japan displayed in the late 1800s and all the way up through World War II had a huge impact on Korea, which was annexed, and many human atrocities happened. As Korea developed into the modern state that it is also trying to find its own method of justice. How do you account for and correct for the injustices of the past? And that's the big trend that was driving in the late 2010s policy disalignment between Korea and Japan. So that policy disalignment, which started with these history issues, really became quite consequential for understanding security and prosperity in East Asia. Japan and Korea had made policy tit-for-tat moves that were leading to the disruption of an intelligence sharing agreement that was absolutely critical from the US point of view of managing North Korea's nuclear proliferation. And what happened that I saw was in a Track 2 conference of the type that I've just described, where officials and experts were meeting in an unofficial capacity, someone offered a reframing of the issue in a way that accepted fault for something other than historical issues. In this case, it was export controls. There was a problem with the export control regime. And the Japanese scholar said, it's interesting that we are criticizing Korean export controls because in reality, our export control office is very small. It's about 20 people. And there's an area where we could really work together to strengthen both of our export control regimes so that critical materials that might lead to the creation or development of nuclear weapons and missiles could not reach North Korea or any adversary. I was very privileged to be a part of a delegation that went and met with South Korean officials shortly after this meeting. And we got into the meeting and we said, the Japanese scholars had an interesting proposal. They thought we could work on export control regimes. And the Korean official immediately just blew up. I mean, I've never seen someone yell that much in an official meeting. Those Japanese, they don't understand, our export controls are good. And we said, no, wait. They're saying they want to work on their export control regime with you. And the tone and the tenor of the meeting immediately shifted. The amount of anger and aggression that this official was feeling just flew out of him like a balloon deflating. And he said, oh, really? The Japanese would talk to us about our export control regimes and how we could mutually strengthen them? I said, yes, that's what they asked for. And that indeed became the basis of delaying, ultimately, the decision to cancel that intelligence sharing agreement. It's a simple matter of reframing, of saying, I recognize what I can do to be better. And if I can recognize what I can do to be better and help you on this mutual path, then we can all benefit. Second story from my time as a Track 2 practitioner. This was actually very early in my career. I had been on the job maybe 3 weeks when I was tasked with shepherding North Korean officials who were in town for a meeting that we were hosting in New York to a private meeting with the late, great Dr. Henry Kissinger. And my task was to take two high-ranking North Korean officials to this meeting so they could speak to Kissinger about the U.S.-North Korea relationship, and then take them on to another series of events. as the junior note taker in the room. I was nervous. I was quite nervous that I wanted to make sure that the meeting went well, that everybody got what they needed, and Dr. Kissinger, for all his gravitas, put us all right at ease. And we're sitting in the meeting. I'm with the North Korean Vice Foreign Minister and another senior-ranking North Korean official, because North Koreans tend to travel in pairs. They have a system of state control that requires them to watch each other and make sure that they have not stepped outside of the bounds of the state message. And I'm watching this person talk to Henry Kissinger, this Vice Foreign Minister, and I realize about 5 minutes into the meeting that sweat is just pouring down his face, that he is as nervous as I have ever seen a human being. And I saw the nervousness that I had reflected in him. And I said, this is not our enemy. This is just another person with another nervous system. And we can recognize that we all have a task to do. Even if that task feels incorrect or odious, he is here doing the best that he can to advance the interests of his own country. That moment has really stuck with me. We have to see each other as people first, and not as members of a tribe or a country or a different community than ours. So I just wanted to share those two stories with you so that you can understand the power of this methodology of Track 2 diplomacy. That when we take the interest of the states and just set them aside for a moment and talk about what's driving them and where we fit together as humans, we can achieve extraordinary progress. That doesn't mean it's easy. It's not easy. That Vice Foreign Minister went on to become North Korea's foreign minister, and he was purged. We believe he was sentenced to a labor camp and ultimately died in that camp. We don't know. We have to deal with states, governments, people, interests that values lie far outside our own, that have their own systems of justice that may not look like ours. And while it's a difficult task, I believe it's the only way forward so that we can ensure that we don't become so invested in othering each other that we lead to the tragic events such as in Hiroshima and Nagasaki so many years ago. Many states look at each other through the lens of strategic mistrust. They're anticipating, they're waiting for the threat to materialize. And as long as we see each other as threats and not as opportunities, then we create self-fulfilling prophecies to drive those threats. I work a lot on cross-Taiwan Strait relations, and what I've noticed there is that there's a desperate need for reframing these issues. The things that the United States and Taiwan do and do together to, in our words, defend ourselves, that we do in defense, the missile buildups, the asymmetric tactics that we are building in new strategic warfare, we see them all as defensive. But to Beijing, with a different set of policy interests and objectives, they see these as escalatory and threatening. Likewise, when Beijing builds up its military, creates its political relationships, makes its own policy moves to defend what it thinks is its interest, the reunification of Taiwan with mainland and the PRC, we see those events as escalatory and threatening. And so there's so many areas in the world where strategic trust should be met with strategic empathy. And strategic empathy, as I've said in these events, is not an agreement that we have the same set of interests or even the same objectives, but it's simply to say, I understand where you're coming from. I see your interests and objectives, and I can work with you to find a better mutual path forward. That will be the most consequential thing we can do in this era. Our politicians and our leadership have created a very false sense of scarcity in our lives, I think. I think we feel as though we're living in a world where we've been victimized by the global system. where other people have taken advantage of our resources and needs. But in reality, we are living in the most abundant time in human history. And I think it's up to all of us, truly in this moment, to take stock of where we are in our own lives, where we're abundant. And that abundance doesn't have to be materially based. We can all be abundant in our value, in our compassion, and to work through that lens of abundance to address some of the major issues that we have today, including divisions inside our society. I see that happening on a macro level quite frequently. As often as our politicians talk about creating war between countries or threatening other countries, there's a large and dedicated group of people, including all of the people who are working in the US Foreign Service, that are quite instrumental in ensuring that the messages that we have are delivered in ways that contain the key qualities of US leadership throughout the world, and throughout the years, which in my mind are humility, curiosity, empathy, and compassion. There's so much to gain when we all work together, and so much to lose when we divide ourselves and start from a lens of scarcity rather than the lens of abundance that we have. And so I invite you all to join us on this path to create a safer, prosperous, and more abundant world by reaching out to your own communities, by sharing your own compassion, by taking stock of where you're abundant, and by, to the extent that you can, critically examining the information that you receive and ask yourself, what is driving it? Is this putting me in a place where I feel like I have more scarcity or more abundance? And adjust yourself accordingly so that you get the information you need to live in your light and your truth. Thank you all for being here today, and thanks for listening to my words. Thank you.
愛がないからですよ。愛があれば戦争は起きないんです。ね、愛という字を見てください。ね、一つは心の触れ合い、心の交わり、ね、これがないから戦争が起きる。やっぱりね、本当にこの戦争しちゃいけんと、ましてや原爆弾のね、核をね、絶対になくさないけんというのが私の本当の心からのお願いですよ。
Our final speaker is Jonathan Granoff, president of the Global Security Institute. And what his professional bio does not tell you is that there is another important dimension to Jonathan, who consanguinely is Jewish, but studied for many years under Sufi master Bawa Mahayadin. In fact, Jonathan's deep spiritual background has informed his perspective of the important work he does in human security. Jonathan, we are grateful to have had you with us for this past week's events, and are looking forward to hearing your reflections and thoughts on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Sensei Ishikawa, community of those who value compassion. Audrey Kitagawa. We're together in a place in which we are, in fact, all looking together in the direction that the bishop pointed. But it doesn't really have a form, does it? You can't put a shape on love. You can't put a shape on compassion. You can't even put a shape on the thing inside of us that knows anything. You can't put a shape on the thing that touches in your hand. What does it look like? Something in our eyes sees. What shape does that have? What shape does the mystery of being human have? If we cut someone open and look, we'll see bones and skin. Will we see their humanity? No, we'll just see bones and skin. Is that what we are? Is there something precious in us? Yes, there is. And nuclear weapons deny that preciousness. They deny it in the most basic ethical offense. Not only do they deny the preciousness of the victims of today, well, I'll give you two good quotes. First, we'll start with the Dalai Lama. A world without nuclear weapons is necessary and possible. In our interconnected world, violence brings suffering even to those far from the conflict. I sincerely hope that we can all remember the oneness of humanity and recall that harming anyone with violence, including the use of nuclear weapons, harms us all. From another place, George Kennan, who was known as one of the most realistic of political pundits, said, "The readiness to use nuclear weapons against other human beings, against people we do not know, whom we've never seen, and whose guilt or innocence is not for us to establish, and in doing so to place in jeopardy the natural structure upon which all civilization rests, as though the safety and perceived interests of our own generation were more important than everything that has taken place or could take place in civilization. This is nothing less than a presumption, a blasphemy, an indignity of monstrous dimensions offered to God." It's the strongest condemnation and most accurate that I've heard. My political mentor, Senator Alan Cranston, used to say, nuclear weapons are simply unworthy of civilization. He said, in the great firmament, there may be other creatures out there, we don't know, but we know that on this planet we have love, and it's worth protecting. My spiritual teacher that Audrey referenced, Bawa Mahayadin, used to say, separate from yourself that which separates you from others. You'll discover that what separates us from others reaffirms an illusion of being separated. Anger, falsehood, jealousy. They all affirm hatred. It affirms an illusion of being separated. And the qualities of love, compassion, patience, justice, tolerance, forgiveness turn us toward our humanity within ourselves and turn us toward the mystery that creates us, which the great teacher Jesus said is love. And the great teacher Buddha said can only be discovered through compassion. So this teaching of what brings us together as human beings is essentially what my colleague Rorry Daniels just said is we should apply with nations. Treat other nations as you want to be treated. It's that simple. Is that a universal principle for politics? I would say so, because it's part of the architecture of being human. Udana Varga of Buddhism, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Christianity, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, you can find this in Confucianism and Hinduism. This is the sum of duty. Do not unto others that which would cause you pain, from the Mahabharata. Islam, no one of you is a believer until he wants for others what he wants for himself. It's universal because it comes from the architecture of humanity, and when we violate it, incoherence and imbalance occurs. The idea that 9 countries, in the pursuit of their self-interest and security, would put at risk the very fabric of life itself and the very future of humanity violates that golden rule. I know, Sensei, in my marriage, when I treat my wife of 47 years the way I want to be treated, we can get together. But when I become selfish, it just somehow doesn't work out real well. But more importantly, in a deeper level, when I recognize her common humanity with me, that which makes her so precious, when I see that as what I want to serve, in this very amazing way, I get served. When I see her suffering as my suffering, and I seek to eliminate it, I realize the nobility of the Buddha's first noble truth. There is affliction, there is suffering. Doesn't sound very noble, does it? But when you realize that you are subject to old age, sickness, and death like everyone else, then you see your common humanity with them. And then it's noble. Then there's nobody below you and no one above you. Then, as the Prophet Muhammad said, we're all like teeth on a comb. We're all together. We're all together. And when that happens, then the heart of compassion has a space for grace. And there is a power greater than we are that gives us grace. And we have to make space for it. And that's what compassion does. It makes space for grace. Nations must treat other nations as they want to be treated. Now, I know that these basic truths are part of the fabric of this community. How do we bring them into practice in our religious institutions? Shouldn't religions treat other religions as they want to be treated? Shouldn't nations? But right now we still have sort of like franchises of the spiritual truths. As I said, Buddhism says this, Christianity says this, Islam says this. I would say that what's unique about our moment in human history is we're the first generation that must decide whether we will be the last generation. 150 years ago, you couldn't melt the polar ice cap. You couldn't change the Gulf Stream. You couldn't destroy the rainforests. You couldn't use nuclear weapons and end civilization. Even if somebody said, let's get together and figure out how to destroy our third lung, the phytoplankton, couldn't do it. But we're doing it. So we have an overarching duty to work together to protect the preciousness of this very fragile planet. And nuclear weapons represent the institutionalization of adversity in a way that says, I could disagree so much with you that I will not only destroy you and everyone else on the planet, but also myself. That's pathological. Because we know that if even a small percentage of the weapons were to be used, it would throw so much soot into the stratosphere that the agricultural base upon which civilization rests would be destroyed. So we've moved from mutually assured destruction to self-assured destruction. And that's called pathological distortion. A few years ago, I was speaking to about 5,000 of the elite youth of Russia. This was before they invaded Crimea and relations broke down and Track 2 work has become much more difficult. But so I was speaking to the elite intelligentsia and young business community of Russia, and I began and I said, is anybody aware that 60% of our oxygen comes from phytoplankton? couple of kids raised their hands, and I explained to them that, in fact, more than half of our breathing is dependent on the health of the oceans, and you can't protect the health of the oceans at a national level. We simply have to protect the phytoplankton because it's our very breath of life. If I lost a lung, or if you lost a lung, we could live. But if we lose the third lung, we all die. So let's take a moment and thank the phytoplankton, a single-cell organism that breathes us all. This is a fact, but this is a spiritual truth. So now I would say we have a responsibility that supersedes all previous generations to protect our third lung. That's simple, easy to understand. And I would say, I had a different speech prepared. It was much more brutal. Really. It was about testimony from some of the survivors of Hiroshima, what they saw, the horrors of it all. The amount of money that's being squandered on these ventures, the arrogance that it creates in the hands of those who have it, the incompetence of our leaders who are so arrogant to think that one or two people can decide the fate of humanity. Are they so wise? Are they so morally insightful? Do they understand what is the golden rule for the 21st century to which we can all look as you described it? Something that I think the Buddha would resonate with if he were here today, because when he stated the golden rule, we couldn't destroy the planet. We couldn't destroy the future. When Jesus said it, we couldn't destroy the future. When Muhammad said it, we couldn't. When Confucius said it, we couldn't. When Socrates said it, we couldn't do those things, but we're doing these things. Our institutions are not designed to deal with this. We created the nation state to separate Protestants and Catholics from slaughtering each other in Central Europe in the 17th century, not to bring people together. Our businesses are intrinsically competitive in the marketplace, not protective of the regenerative processes of nature. AI is learning from how our businesses work and how our nations work. We have a moral duty to future generations. I would say we need a golden rule for the 21st century. We must treat the lives and well-being of future generations as we want to be treated. We are tied together in a web of life that stretches from our ancestors to those who come after us. We're not only responsible for the people that we live with and ourselves, we are responsible for the legacy of the freedoms and benefit of our parents, our grandparents, and as back to the first humans. And we are responsible for those who have a right to this precious planet. So we need to think, is there a golden rule that says we must treat the lives and well-being of future generations as we want to be treated? I know that it resonates with my conscience. And if it resonates with yours, we need to use this principle in talking to our political leaders. What are you doing to protect the lives and well-being of future generations? What are you doing to get rid of nuclear weapons that threaten the very fabric of life? What are you doing? Are you creating an environment in which citizens can talk to each other, in which normal people can recognize our common humanity, in which we have some degree of humility knowing of the numerous near misses we've had? January 1995, a weather satellite is launched off the coast of Norway. Boris Yeltsin is told there may be a nuclear explosion that would be sufficient to destroy the command and control of Russia, exploding over Moscow, destroying all the computers and all of the communications. It had 8 minutes to decide. The Norwegians had told the Russians that they were going to send this satellite, weather satellite, But it looked like a Trident launch, couldn't tell the difference, and it wasn't passed up the command and control. And Boris Yeltsin said he wasn't worried, although they opened what we call the football. He wasn't worried because he knew Bill Clinton. It was the human element. 1983, General Petrov saw thousands. General Stanislav Petrov saved the world. He saw thousands of nuclear bombs from the United States coming to the then Soviet Union. And he knew that if he passed that message up the command and control, 11,000 nuclear warheads would have rained down on the United States and we would all be dead. He violated his protocols and just kept it to himself, said it's a mistake. I asked him for a documentary. You can see the movie. It's called The Man Who Saved the World. I said, what gave you the courage and humility not to pass it on? He said, I was a computer engineer. I knew computers make mistakes. And God said he didn't want the world to end. And my superiors didn't know whether to reward me for saving the world or punish me for violating my protocols, but what concerned them most was I believed in God. Ideology, mythology, a worship of the state, the worship of religion as an end in itself, whatever your ideology is. Remember, the state was created because religious fanaticism was leading to slaughter. That's why the teaching of compassion, the teaching of recognizing our common humanity is so essential to the very future of the world, and that begins with every one of us. But I would say that say it best in a poem. The heart without the hand withers. Good qualities without action become mere sentiment, and they wither when circumstances change. You have to bring those qualities into action to reinforce them. And when you do that, you'll find the wind of grace putting you forward. And the hand without the heart is very dangerous. Human action without the qualities is very dangerous. We're very dangerous creatures. We're putting the regenerative processes of nature at risk. But when the heart of compassion and the hand of service are put together, then the salt of suffering, old age, sickness, death, betrayal, disappointment. I know for me, when I've gotten what I wanted in life, it was never as good as I expected. And when I don't get it, I'm frustrated. But whatever comes to me when I'm of service has far exceeded my expectations. So when the heart and the hand come together, the salt of affliction and suffering, because of compassion, is turned into the sugar of meaning and fulfillment. And when did our country shine the most? Well, it shines the most when we bring students from the whole world to our universities to learn with us. It shined the most when we had the Marshall Plan, unlike the First World War, where we crushed those who lost and reaped the whirlwind of Nazism. The Marshall Plan reached out to Japan and Germany and built up their economies, built up their democracy, and ended up with trading partners and friends. These qualities are realistic. It is not realistic to continue to rely on computers and human beings with weapons of mass destruction that can destroy the future. That's not realistic. It's not realistic to put at risk the regenerative processes of nature because we can't work together. We have to work together. That's realism. Spare me those who say it's not realistic to save the planet. Now, what are we really dealing with? Now, I remember a few years ago, the President of the United States was led to believe, and believed, that we could invade Iraq and the people of Baghdad would greet us with flowers and celebration. And my very wise wife said, nah, I don't think so. And when when Putin said, oh, we're going to invade Ukraine, and the people there will be so happy to get rid of the Jewish Nazi running the place, and they'll come out with flowers in celebration in Kiev, I said, nah, I don't think so. Now, if you'd asked any cab driver in Baghdad or any cab driver in Kiev what would happen, undoubtedly, they would say, the invaders will be met with bloodshed and bullets, not flowers. And yet, the leaders, those leaders, and the leaders of the world right now, are not any smarter than a cab driver. And in an afternoon, they could end this precious gift of life. To quote Ronald Reagan, 6 minutes to decide Armageddon because of a blip on a computer is nuts. And our apathy in not raising our voices on these issues from a simple moral perspective. What does the Golden Rule tell us? What is our responsibility to future generations? What is the responsibility to my conscience? What is the responsibility to my heart? What is the responsibility to my children? I say when you think about these questions, you have to speak up. Look, if this hand gets on fire, this hand immediately goes to help. Well, the Buddha's teaching is that if her hand gets on fire, I immediately come to help, just as I would for my own hand. And right now, the planet's on fire. And right now, there are almost 1 billion people unnecessarily living in abject poverty. There are mothers today in South Sudan who have to decide which one of their children will have enough food tomorrow and which one won't. There are hundreds of millions of people who have poverty such that no matter how hard they work, it will not change their condition. But we also have the capacity to end this. A small portion of the expenditures on these weapons of mass destruction could end poverty on the planet. Imagine the celebration that would happen if our leaders called to get together to do that. Imagine the people of Kiev and Baghdad would come out with flowers and celebration. And we're so close to it. It happened a conversation between Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev in the woods in Reykjavik. We came so close to ending nuclear weapons. Well, we didn't actually get rid of them, but we did move from having over 70,000 to less than 13,000 today. So that's an accomplishment that our politicians and leaders have not gotten credit for. The point is, we know how to do it. We can do it. We must do it. And it all comes back to the golden rule for today. May we have hearts that are golden, hands that are generous, courage that is unfaltering. May we answer the question of our national anthem. Does the flag that makes us free and brave still wave? Or are we too afraid to speak out for goodness and for love? I say, yes, we will speak out for goodness and love. Yes, we will affirm that there is a power of compassion that lives in us. I say, yes, our humanity is worth preserving because it's a gift. Thank you so much.
私は渡辺智子と申します。私は被爆者の両親のもと、 広島の地に生まれ育ちました。今、私は平和公園にいます。私の後ろに見えるのは原爆ドームです。広島では原爆投下後75年間は草木も生えないと言われていましたが、1945年9月にはカンナの花が咲き、翌年には焼けただれた樹木から緑の新芽が芽吹きました。黒や灰色の色のない世界に緑の新芽が芽吹いたことに、人々は感動し、涙を流し、勇気づけられて、再び生きていく力を樹木からもらいました。私はイチョウ、青桐、フジの3種類の被爆樹木の子供の苗をサンフランシスコに運び、2019年の夏、サンフランシスコの日本庭園に植樹されました。この植樹式は、ジョージ・シャーロット・シュルツ夫妻の長年にわたる外交や世界平和への貢献を記念したものでした。この物語は、希望の物語であり、慰めと真の和解をもたらす物語だと私は思います。被爆樹木はその声なき声で、未来の子どもたちのために核兵器なき世界を実現するとともに、多くの地球上の命が共に生きることのできる世界を作り上げていく責務が私たちにあることを静かに語り続けています。
There was such a beautiful clip from Tomoko Watanabe because she helps us to understand how important it is to live life with hope and inspiration, to see the power of life itself wanting to live. I would like to express my deepest appreciation to Jonathan Granoff and Rorry Daniels for your participation, not only in today's remembrance, but in the events over the last couple of days. We are most grateful to you for taking the time to come to Hawaii, to share your insights on nuclear weapons, international diplomacy policies, and the challenges facing our global family. Our appreciation extends to the Jodo mission of Hawaii, Bishop Ishikawa, and the many volunteers who have made these events of the past few days possible. And our special thanks to Sally Hayashi for her dedicated service as office manager for many, many years to Jodo Mission. I extend my deepest appreciation to all of the technicians, several of whom flew in from California to help with these events, and the many volunteers of my spiritual community who have stepped forward to help with these 3 days of events, several of whom have flown in specially from the mainland to attend and support our events. My appreciation to the planning organizers of these 3 events, Ed Young, Joanne Tachibana, Steve Terada, who flew in from Japan, Jose Barzola, Stephanie Smith-Einstadt, and the many volunteers who have helped with these 3 events. We would like to thank everyone for joining us today for this commemoration of the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And let us all be in remembrance of the many victims as well as survivors, and join the millions of other concerned citizens of the world who yearn for a nuclear weapons-free world, a world of harmony and understanding where children can grow and flourish without fear, in a world that values love and peace and the dignity of all people. The path of peace honors the sacredness of life, the beauty of our diversity and the interconnection of all beings. We are community. We must learn the ways to work together in loving harmony, helping each other to succeed in developing the mark of excellence in character and conduct, that we may realize the beauty and fullness of our own potential. We stand within the field of infinite possibilities to deepen the development of our spiritual lives, that we may become that beacon of love, hope, and inspiration to all those whose lives we touch. May we heed the cries of the many innocent people who died 80 years ago. May we always honor the manner in which the survivors dedicated their lives to ensure that future generations will never experience such suffering again. To these giants in history, many of whom are unknown, we thank you for your tireless efforts for peace. We are deeply grateful. For those of you who registered to join us for lunch, we ask that you proceed to the social hall next door where lunch will be served at noon. So you'll have a little bit of time to be able to chat with each other, meet each other, and to share the communal spirit. And be sure that you have your red ticket that you received when you checked in for the luncheon portion of the program. Before we depart, however, I will ask Bishop Ishikawa to please say a blessing of the food before we eat. Bishop Ishikawa.
As we gather here to share this moment together for the 80th anniversary of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, to offer prayers and aspiration for peace. We are thankful for the lunch as a social hall, a gift of the earth, the sky, and the many hands that prepared it. May we receive it with mindfulness and appreciation. May our hearts be filled with compassion, our minds with wisdom, and our actions with kindness. May we cultivate harmony, understanding, and peace in our lives in the world. With sincere gratitude, we dedicate this meal to the well-being of all beings. May all be free from suffering and live with joy. Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu. いただきます。Thank you very much.